Hey, it's Dr. Ginny Cristerna, the lead psychological surgeon right here at International High Achievers. And one of my patients asked me today, because they have some narcissistic traits that they're working through. And we had a wonderful conversation around trauma. And he wanted to know, well, he didn't have any significant trauma, which I would agree with, right? His is more of an entitlement. Like, I deserve this and I shouldn't be held to the same standard and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, makes sense. And so one of the things that we talked about are the two ways that you can develop a narcissistic trait, a set of narcissistic traits. One is, yes, it's trauma-based, because narcissism is a shame-based disorder, right? And so, if there's trauma, absolutely, right? So people who experience narcissism or true NPD, they don't feel guilt. It's very much a shame-based disorder. Individuals who develop narcissistic traits or narcissism in the other way, it's a little different, right? So while one is trauma, created through trauma, the other one is created through entitlement and being indulged. So back in the day, there was this therapist slash psychologist person who came up with this phrase affluenza, this term affluenza, where people don't have the ability to be held responsible because they don't know what they're doing wrong because they had such a great life and they were never held accountable. Cliff Notes version. And that is basically narcissism. That is the other way you can develop narcissism, which is when a parent indulges their kid instead of holding them accountable if they are afraid of the backlash that a child may have, and it's just easier to buy them things. They don't help them emotionally regulate, things like that. Absolutely, you're planting an entire crop of narcissistic traits that will be watered. So when they do something that's hurtful to someone, they, of course, don't take responsibility for it because they don't know how to manage or regulate that, right? Their parent is emotionally unavailable. Their parent is probably exhibiting or has a number of narcissistic traits, if not being are also narcissistic themselves. So, if you give your kid everything and you don't hold them accountable, and you're afraid of the backlash, and it's just easier to buy them something to calm them down as opposed to sitting down with them and helping them regulate, then you are creating kind of a little terror, a little monster of an adult that when they get older and they go out into the world, they don't know how to be in relationship with people. What you'll notice is that every time they get into a relationship and there's trouble, they buy them stuff, right? They buy off their partner. They love bomb them, especially when they're getting love bombed in the beginning of a relationship. That's the sign that either there's some trauma where they're like, I'm not good enough. Look at what I can do for you, though, right? Because you wouldn't possibly want me. Or it's, to let them know that, hey, I can do these things for you. So if I do something bad, I'll just buy you something and then you'll forget all about it. People who were bought a lot of things instead of held accountable growing up, what you'll notice is that their ability to reflect is very, very low. So you can still have these narcissistic traits, but they're bred of entitlement. Your parent or your caretaker giving you everything. You don't really have to ask for it. You don't have optimal frustration. You're not mirrored in any significant way or regulated, and your emotions aren't able to be experienced because they're afraid of your emotions. They're probably afraid of theirs, which is why in one of the videos I had done, I said, the best way to help your kid not develop these narcissistic traits is to let them have their emotions, right? To help them through it, to help them understand it, to process, to emote, right? All of our feelings are legitimate and fine. It's what we do with them, right? How do we express them? What meaning do we give them? What do we make of them? And that is really how we can help our children become healthy adults. If you are an adult and you struggle with that and you find yourself always buying people things to either keep them bound to you, to keep them from being angry at you, or when they are angry angry at you, you kind of wave this shiny object and go, hey, look at this, right? And then they go, okay, but you guys never address the underlying issue, then it may have been somewhere in your childhood, and especially if you're having a hard time reflecting and saying, oh, yeah, I could have possibly done that. They have gotten you everything, right? You probably had two of everything. The one parent was still very critical and judgmental of you, so the narcissism is still going to be shame-based, but here's the object, here's the shiny thing, and then they turn around and go, oh, you're such a horrible, crappy person. Why would you do that? Right. And so there's a lot of inner turmoil and conflict. And so the parent that does that the most with the child is the parent that just the child usually struggles with emotionally. There are a lot of conflicting emotions about that parent. So what I have noticed in my professional opinion, in my experience, is that when narcissistic qualities or personality disorder is rooted in entitlement and the parent just buying them everything, they do have a slight sense of guilt. When it's trauma, they don't really have the ability to feel guilt because it's so shame based, right? It's a fine line. It's a very fine distinction, but that has been my experience. So remember, the narcissistic person or highly traded person, they need a lot of external validation. They need, oh, you're so handsome, you're so smart, you're so this, you're so that. A lot of ego stroking, as we would call it. When someone needs a lot of ego stroking, or if you notice that you feel better when someone compliments you and you need that, you're in a wound or you're experiencing an unmet need that has come to the surface. And so I tell people, men and women, if you notice that, or when that happens, that's an opportunity for you to heal that unmet need and to really explore that and experience what it is that's going on, and learning different ways where you can meet that need yourself. So, and it's also something to be mindful of. That is when you're most likely to be manipulated, right? Because people, they're like predators. They kind of sniff out, right? The manipulators kind of sniff out who is weak. And usually when we're coming from our ego, we're very weak. And I'm going to do a video about the purpose of the ego and why it's so hard to get out of our ego. But yeah, usually if you notice that I feel better around this person because they compliment me, they make me feel good about myself. I feel good about myself with this person. You're an ego, and that is an unmet need and a wound from childhood that you would benefit from healing. So I hope that was helpful. That's the second way we can end up with narcissistic traits and personality disorder. So I hope if you need help, feel free to reach out to me if you're in Illinois, Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Minnesota, and Indiana. I am licensed in those 5 states. Or find somebody in your state to really help you through these challenges, because it's really hard. And if you're looking to change, you can. So with that, every good wish. Mwah. Bye.